Some people don't just keep tools. They keep proof. Proof that when something breaks, there's a good chance they'll be the one to fix it. A drawer full of worn screwdrivers, old batteries, leftover screws, duct tape, random cables, and half-used tubes of glue. Not because it's aesthetic, not because it's organized, but because life has taught them something important. Eventually, something will fall apart. And when it does, someone has to know what to do. More often than not, that someone becomes you. Maybe it started with practical things, fixing a broken outlet, learning how to patch something no one else wanted to deal with, watching tutorials late at night because waiting for help felt less reliable than becoming the help yourself. And slowly, without really meaning to, you became the person people turn to, the one who handles things, the calm one, the dependable one. Not just when shelves collapse or cars make strange noises, but when relationships fail, emotions spill over, plans fall apart, or someone's world starts shaking. You became the person people call when life breaks, and at first, that probably felt like strength. Maybe it was strength. But over time, being the capable one can become more than a role. It can become identity. Because when people consistently come to you for answers, solutions, or stability, you start internalizing a specific story about yourself. I am the one who figures it out. I am the one who keeps it together. I am the one who does not fall apart. And that identity can be powerful until the day you're the one holding something too heavy to carry alone. Because here's where it gets complicated. When your sense of self is built around being reliable, asking for help can start to feel strangely threatening. Not because you think you're better than everyone else, not because nobody would help, but because somewhere deep down, needing support can feel like stepping outside the character you've spent your whole life becoming. For many fixers, this pattern starts early, usually earlier than they realize. It doesn't always come from dramatic hardship. Sometimes it comes from quieter things. A home where the adults were loving but overwhelmed. A childhood where asking for help felt like adding pressure. Moments where emotional needs were met inconsistently, or where being easy and independent seemed to create fewer problems. So you adapt. You learn to need less. You learn to observe. You learn what the room can hold and what it can't. You become self-sufficient, not necessarily because you wanted to, but because at some point it felt safer. And when that adaptation gets reinforced for years, it can become more than behavior. It becomes personality. You become mature for your age, low maintenance, the strong one. But strength developed this way often comes with an invisible cost. You may become excellent at solving problems while quietly believing your problems deserve space too. That's the hidden psychology of many fixers. They don't just avoid asking for help because they're stubborn. They often avoid it because needing something can trigger an old, deeply uncomfortable feeling: vulnerability. Asking for help means admitting, even briefly, that you cannot currently handle something alone. And for someone whose nervous system learned early that safety came from competence, that can feel deeply unnatural. So instead, they calculate, endure, push harder, minimize. They tell themselves, "It's fine. I'll figure it out. I just need more time." Because continuing to function can feel emotionally safer than openly meeting. Research has shown that people regularly underestimate how willing others are to support them. In other words, many people assume asking will be more burdensome than it actually is. The barrier often isn't reality, it's internal meaning. What does it mean about me if I need help? For the fixer, that question can hit hard, because competence often becomes more than skill. It becomes proof. Proof that you're useful. Proof that you matter. Proof that you can create order, stability, and safety. So every solved problem reinforces identity, and every unsolved one can feel personal. This is especially true emotionally. Many highly capable people are incredible in crisis. They know how to stay calm. They can think clearly under pressure. They can hold other people together when everything feels chaotic. But when they're the one struggling, that same person may suddenly become deeply uncomfortable. They may intellectualize instead of feel, problem solve instead of receive, explain instead of lean. I'm okay. Don't worry about me. I've got it. Because support can feel unfamiliar in ways responsibility never did. And underneath that is often one quiet belief: my needs might be too much. Sometimes this belief is obvious. Sometimes it's so old it barely feels like a belief at all. It just feels true. Maybe it came from watching caregivers already stretched thin. Maybe from being praised more for competence than vulnerability. Maybe from years of being the helper until receiving help started to feel foreign. Whatever its origin, the result is often the same. They become someone who would do anything for others while struggling to believe others would genuinely want to do the same for them. And that's where the real contradiction lives. Fixers are often the first to show up. They listen, repair, stay late, solve, support. They would never shame someone they love for struggling. In fact, they'd probably be honored to help. Yet when it comes to themselves, the rules change. Suddenly, asking feels selfish, needing feels inconvenient, vulnerability feels like weakness, so they keep carrying more than they should. And from the outside, it can look like strength. Sometimes it is strength, but sometimes it's also survival. Sometimes "I've got it" really means I don't know how to let anyone else. This is why healing for the fixer usually isn't about becoming less capable. It's not about abandoning resilience or independence. It's about expanding the definition of strength. Real growth often means learning that competence and vulnerability can coexist, that asking for help doesn't erase capability, that being strong doesn't mean being unsupported, that your worth is not measured only by how much pain, pressure, or responsibility you can carry without breaking. You are still allowed to be resourceful, still allowed to be dependable, still allowed to know how to repair what others can't, but you are also allowed to be human, allowed to have limits, allowed to discover that sometimes the bravest thing isn't fixing everything alone. It's trusting that being supported does not make you weaker, it makes you connected. Because maybe strength was never supposed to mean constant self-sacrifice. Maybe true strength is knowing when to carry and when to set something down. Maybe it's understanding that even the person everyone depends on deserves support too. You can still be the one who knows how to fix things. You can still be capable, prepared, and deeply reliable. But perhaps the real shift happens when you stop believing that your value comes only from what you can hold together alone. Because even the strongest people were never meant to carry every washing machine, every crisis, every emotion, and every burden by themselves. Sometimes growth looks less like gripping tighter and more like finally trusting someone enough to hand them part of the weight.